There are people who walk into a room and everyone instantly knows they're dangerous. Not because they threaten anyone, but because nobody can figure out what they're thinking. Watch until the end, you will be surprised. These aren't sociopaths. They're strategists who mastered something most people never even attempt: complete emotional encryption. And you're about to learn how they do it. Real power doesn't announce itself. It waits. Think about ancient Roman gladiators who survived dozens of fights. The successful ones weren't the loudest or most aggressive. They were the ones who gave nothing away. Every eye movement was deliberate. Every stance calculated. Why? Because in the arena, predictability equals death. Your opponent studies you, finds your pattern, exploits your weakness. The moment you telegraph your next move, you're finished. Modern boardrooms operate on identical principles. The executive who pounds the table loses respect. The one who smiles too eagerly gets manipulated. But the person who listens with that unsettling calm, who processes everything while revealing nothing, that's who controls the entire outcome without anyone realizing there was even a game being played. You ever notice how certain intelligence operatives can sit through interrogations showing zero stress? How they can hear accusations, threats, promises, and their facial muscles barely twitch? That's not genetics. That's training. Deliberate, systematic training in emotional concealment. And here's what nobody tells you. The skill translates directly to salary negotiations, family conflicts, legal disputes, and every power dynamic you'll ever face. Picture yourself in a high-stakes poker game, except the cards are your career. Someone makes an insulting lowball offer. Your gut reaction? Show offense. Maybe laugh dismissively. Definitely let them know that's unacceptable. Fatal mistake. You just revealed that their number affected you, which means they now know exactly where your threshold sits. But what if you simply pause, maintain neutral eye contact, and say, "Tell me more about how you arrived at that figure"? Now, you've done something dangerous. You've become unreadable. They can't tell if you're intrigued, insulted, or already planning a counterstrike so devastating they'll regret this meeting. That uncertainty becomes your weapon. It's like working a cold case in ENSIS. You never reveal which evidence surprised you. You catalog facts internally while maintaining that "I've seen this pattern before" expression. That composure transforms you into a fortress nobody can breach. There's an ancient principle whispered in corridors of influence. When you say less, you reveal less. But this extends beyond words into every signal you broadcast. Your eyebrows, your breathing rhythm, your micro-expressions. The less you give away, the more people project onto that blank space. And here's the twist. What they imagine becomes more intimidating than anything you could actually say. But can you really train yourself to become this unreadable, or is it something only certain personalities can achieve? Because there's a neurological mechanism at play here, one that explains why some people crack under pressure while others become even more composed when directly attacked. How every reaction you show becomes intelligence for your enemy. Here's something that sounds like spy tradecraft, but is pure psychology. Every visible emotional response is a confession. It's you admitting that someone else just hijacked your internal state. And once they discover that button, you've become their puppet. Consider Cardinal Richelieu in 17th century France. The man orchestrated political executions while maintaining that bored, almost drowsy expression. His enemies would present evidence against him, make threats, offer bribes, and his face remained as still as marble. That emotional opacity became a psychological weapon more effective than any army. Why? Because unpredictability is terrifying. In modern warfare, it's called strategic ambiguity, keeping adversaries guessing about your capabilities and intentions. You deploy the same tactic in daily interactions. When someone throws a provocative statement just to gauge your reaction, they're fishing for intelligence. They want to see what makes you flinch, what triggers defensiveness, what threatens your ego. If you react, they just learn something valuable about your pressure points. But if you remain perfectly neutral, now they're operating blind, afraid to advance because they don't know if they're about to trigger something catastrophic. Imagine a colleague spreads a false rumor about your competence. Instinct says, confront immediately, defend your reputation, show righteous anger. But think like an ENSIS investigator analyzing the scene. Who benefits from your emotional reaction? Who's watching to see if you'll implode? Now picture this instead. You continue exactly as before. Same routine, same enigmatic half smile when the topic comes up. You act as if you know something they don't. Suddenly, the rumor spreader starts sweating, wondering if you're gathering evidence for a devastating countermove. Your strategic silence just became a phantom threat, far more powerful than any verbal defense. There's a dark wisdom that teaches surrender as a tool of power. Not literal surrender, but surrender of reactions. You become like water, impossible to grasp, impossible to wound. They attack with harsh words, you absorb without showing damage. They try provocation, you respond with disturbing calm. This emotional flexibility completely frustrates aggressors because every punch passes through empty space, hitting nothing solid. But what happens when someone actually manages to rattle you? Is there a way to reclaim that control within seconds? Because there's a specific technique used by hostage negotiators that can reset your nervous system in the middle of a confrontation. What if you could switch off emotions like flipping a circuit breaker? Imagine having a mental switch that, when activated, transforms you into a purely rational version of yourself. Zero anger, zero fear, zero wounded pride. Just cold analysis and strategic decision-making. Sounds like science fiction? Medieval samurai perfected this 600 years ago, and Wall Street titans have rediscovered the blueprint. The secret lies in something called strategic detachment, but forget the technical jargon. It's simply this: when someone attacks you verbally, you mentally step outside your body for 3 seconds. You observe the scene like a detective reviewing security footage. Fascinating. This person is attempting destabilization through public shaming. What's their actual objective? Ancient Spartans trained this relentlessly. They viewed emotional reactions as wild horses, powerful but requiring reins. Most people let the horses run wild and get dragged through chaos. But you hold the reins. You feel the anger rising. You acknowledge the horses wanting to bolt, and you choose not to mount them. There's a Prussian military theorist from the 1800s, von Moltke, who wrote something disturbing. No battle plan survives first contact with the enemy. Translation for your life: every potentially hostile human interaction is a microwar, where uncontrolled emotions equal disorganized soldiers. You've already lost before the battle begins. Real scenario: your boss humiliates you in a meeting in front of everyone. Your blood boils. Your hands shake. You want to shout or storm out. Instead, you breathe deeply imperceptibly, count mentally to 4, and respond, "I appreciate the feedback. I'll analyze this and bring you concrete data tomorrow." What just happened? You transformed an emotional assault into a professional transaction. Your boss expected to see you squirm. Instead, you remained unmoved. And now, they're uncomfortable because their strike failed. You just inverted the power dynamic of the entire room without raising your voice. There's a shadowy maxim: keep others in suspense by cultivating an air of unpredictability. But true unpredictability doesn't come from erratic actions. It comes from never revealing how you actually feel. People fear what they cannot anticipate. But is there a point where this mask becomes you, and you forget who you really are beneath it? If you've realized that controlling reactions means controlling destiny, hit that like button and subscribe. This type of knowledge shouldn't be this accessible, but here it is. Because now comes the part almost nobody survives. The moment you realize you're being tested constantly, by everyone, everywhere. How the entire world is trying to read you right now. Take a breath. What I'm about to tell you will make you reconsider every interaction you've had in the past year. Every time someone asked an innocent question, every time they shared random gossip, every time they tested your reaction to a controversial idea. It wasn't random. You were being read, scanned, mapped. Think about it. We live in a world where everyone's trying to predict everyone else's next move. Social media, artificial intelligence, algorithms, all attempting to decode behavioral patterns. But long before any of this existed, humans were doing it naturally. When you go to a job interview, they're not just evaluating your answers. They're watching how you sit, where your eyes go when you think, how you react to uncomfortable questions. Remember those 3 previous parts? The invisibility, reaction control, strategic detachment. Everything converges here, you becoming unreadable. A black box. Someone people know is intelligent, know is capable, but cannot predict. And that unpredictability generates something powerful. Respect mixed with caution. There's a dark saying that circulates in intelligence communities. He who can be read, can be manipulated. He who cannot be read, manipulates. And this isn't about being malicious, it's about self-preservation in a world where information is ammunition. So how do you deploy this? Simple, starting today. You stop being an open book. You stop validating gossip by reacting to it. You stop showing desperation when you need something. You stop celebrating victories publicly before they're secured. You become strategic with your emotions, not repressing them, but choosing when and where to release them. In negotiation, neutral face. During provocation, enigmatic smile. Receiving exaggerated praise, contained gratitude. You become a modern samurai, disciplined, unpredictable, lethal only when absolutely necessary, but always ready. And here's the final trick. When you stop reacting emotionally to everything, you gain time. Time to think, time to analyze, time to craft the perfect response, instead of firing off the first thing that enters your head. That space between stimulus and response, that's where true freedom lives. There's a dark and definitive law. Think as you like, but behave like others. Not literally, but strategically. Don't be the eccentric who attracts attention. Be the silent observer who sees everything, records everything, and acts only when holding absolute advantage. This is the invisible power that topples empires and builds dynasties. But tell me, are you truly ready to live like this, knowing you can never be completely transparent again? If this video made you rethink how you interact with the world, tell me in the comments, what was the last time you reacted emotionally and regretted it afterward? Hit that like if you understood the power behind emotional invisibility. Subscribe for more strategies they don't want you knowing. And share this with someone who needs to stop handing their power away. Because there's a sequel to this. An even deeper technique that transforms you not just into someone unreadable, but someone who actively controls the narrative others create about you. But that's for those who truly want to play at the highest level.